Welcome to the Intuition Incubator. Today, I have with us, I'm so excited. This came together very last minute, but it's just perfect. Jorge Perez. Jorge is an author, agent, producer, and keynote speaker. He's been in the personal development and entertainment industry for over 20 years. He's the host of the Outliers TV podcast and has created TV shows for Bravo. He's also an award-winning documentary filmmaker about the homeless epidemic in Los Angeles. Jorge is here today to talk about his fabulous book called The Shut the Fuck Up Method, which I love on so many, many levels. But I will tell you, viewers, what is phenomenal about this book is that it is accessible, it is real, it's easy to understand, and it makes so much sense. It is the boots on the ground work that I love to discuss that leads us to that life that we're looking for. So welcome, Jorge.
Thank you so much, Abby. So happy to be with you today.
Yeah. So tell us, what prompted you to write this book? Like, what was the journey? Give us the spiel.
Thank you. This book was highly inspired by the passing of both of my parents. Both my parents passed away from cancer, pretty back to back to each other. My dad in 2019 and my mom in 2022. And it took me on a deep dive on, obviously genetics and epigenetics, which is how I found the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. And after taking a deep dive on epigenetics, which is a study of how our environment and stress affects the body and the kind of things that it can trigger, right? Diseases, whether they're neurological or cancer, they have a correlation to stress. And what I did learn is that our genetic predispositions, our genetics, in fact, they're like firecrackers. You can have firecrackers in your house, but as long as you don't light them, you're fine. And what lights them? Stress and being in an abusive state of fight or flight. Digging deep into my parents' past, my dad, he had a lot of anger about what happened in his native country of Venezuela and his business. My mom had a hard time getting over the divorce. And I can see how they constantly kept digging themselves in that state and really found themselves through language just constantly being wrapped in that stressful state. I started volunteering for Dr. Joe Dispenza, who obviously he does incredible retreats on epigenetics and quantum physics, and a lot of his retreats have been documented to have people have spontaneous remissions from cancer or other diseases. So it was the first time that I was volunteering for him, and he's talking about how one as the observer, when you put attention on things, it grows, right? Where attention goes, energy grows. And I remember we went on our first break and I see like volunteers and staff and participants complaining about the food, gossiping, complaining about this. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, you just heard the guy. So I tell one of his main people, I'm like, my God, you know what? If I ever write a spiritual book, it's going to be called Shut the Fuck Up. And it kind of started as a dare. And I just, I feel like I channeled this book, Abby. It took about 2.5 months, but it was, I'd say this book was 20 something years in the making. I've studied with Sai Baba, Byron Katie, Tony Robbins, Marianne Williamson, Abraham Hicks, all in person. And think that this book is my flavor of all that, but really honing into language.
And
the use of language.
And the use of language. Yeah. I love that. And it's so funny when we can observe those things. And of course, when we get sort of a handle on ourselves, we're able to see, it in other people. We're able to sort of see ourselves. And Dr. Joe even talks about that. Like you start to see and I can have empathy for that person because I remember, what that was like. So tell us about, one of the things tell us the benefits of shutting the fuck up. Like I have so many benefits and I have so many examples. But what do you really see is the reason that we want to do this?
Well, in the book, I go deep into how as a culture, we've normalized complaining. Complaining is a way in which we create camaraderie. And we've paid a pretty hefty price for it, which is the
Yeah.
quality of our lives. And, complaining or gossiping, they're a very survival-based conversation. So we're wired to survive. I go into how our ancestors all came from just situations that were a lot more surviving oriented than the ones you and I have now, whether it was getting on boats. No one came to America because it was a little chilly in Europe or anywhere else. Like
Right.
shit went
Right.
down.
Yeah. Right.
So
Right.
now we're here and we're the descendants of these gladiators that were facing, whether it was tetanus or women dying at childbirth. But now we're surviving, Amazon Prime is late. Or like, what am I going to do for a living? Or my son's university is $90,000 a year. Now, not minimizing our life struggles, but I do think that, history, in my opinion, gets better and better. And we need to, in a way, get a grip. And we need to really focus on the gratitude of every moment and how good our life is. Because I don't care who you are, and especially, you and me right now, millions of people would love to be in our shoes. And
yeah.
and for someone like you and me to be obsessing over, the size of the house or any other things, it's fine. But if we took a moment to really marinate in that gratitude of how good our life is, it would create a whole different existence for us. So I think the benefits of using this method, of using mindfulness, it's not repression, it's mindfulness, then we just start enjoying life so much more, and we don't start putting conditions on our happiness. We don't say, you know what, once I get that house, I'm going to be really happy. You start saying, no, this is it. This is it. Because that moment that moment over there is not guaranteed. So my moment to be happy and at peace is now.
Yeah, it's so true. We just had a hurricane here. And my aunt texted me this morning, how are you doing? And I said, we were spared. And she said, oh, you're so lucky. And I said, yes, I'm lucky in so many ways. And so are you. And she was like, yeah, the Northeast doesn't really get hurricanes. I said, no, like our lives. We're really, really lucky. We have love, we have shelter, we have all of these things, and it's so important, right, to honor that. I love the approach that you're taking to it, though, because it's so direct, and it really kind of it really infiltrates, like, where is that blind spot that we are not doing that? Because it's easy to say, oh, I'm going to be grateful and everything's fabulous. And certainly when you're at an event, you can feel tremendous, right? But there's all kinds of stressors, that happen all the time. And the more we verbalize them, what happens when we verbalize those things?
Yeah, well, I think, we are collectively, it's almost like we're all starting at less than zero. And what I mean by that is that we're so genetically wired to survive, like our brains are just wired to survive. So the more that we don't do certain activities to almost rewire our natural tendencies that right now are so heightened, because right now there's so many distractions, right? Our phones are pulling us from everywhere. Like the news cycle is 24 hours. Like we're worrying about things that are like, I have family in Florida too. I just recently moved to Florida, but my sister's in New York and I'm here in LA right now. And it came a moment a few days ago with this whole hurricane thing that I was like, unless you're in Tampa right now, you have no excuse to be stressed.
No.
That you're in grace. So again, it's get a grip. So in the book, not only do I point out these things, but I give you a way out, which I am a huge fan of meditating. I think the whole point, and it doesn't need to be more than, and I tell people, if you're just starting out, go to YouTube, find a 5-minute meditation for free that's guided to reduce stress. I think if we do this really early in the morning when our brain is in theta, which you and I very much know this, we're almost like a sponge, and I go lightly on this because this book is, my goal was to make it super accessible. So I just say, listen, when you wake up in the morning, you're like a sponge. You want to feed that brain of yours with things that are going to normalize and neutralize the nervous system. So I created this thing called the GAF, right? Gratitude, affirmation, and visualization. Grab your GAF notebook, 3 things that you're grateful for, 3 things that you want to affirm about yourself, and 3 things that you want to visualize. Then jump into a 5-minute meditation. what this does is you start programming the reticular activating system to start looking for things to be grateful for. The roof over my head, the fact that I can breathe with no pain, that I have a bed. I mean, those three things, millions of people would love to have that. So as the brain starts to like get in intimacy with those things, it's like energy, right? The universe is going to bring you more of those things. And before you know it, it's like everybody's smiling at you. You're skipping traffic, or you're in traffic and you're not even mad and you're going, oh my God, who am I?
Right.
It's insane. So I think a gratitude practice and a meditation practice, I mean, you're off to the races for starters.
Yeah, I love that because it is so accessible and you just simplify it so well. Like these are not difficult things to start up, and they're really easy to do. And so people that I get really intimidated by, like, oh, well, I can't go to events and I can't meditate for 6 hours and, whatever it is. No, you don't have to do that. Like this book kind of gives you a really simple method. And I think what people will find shocking is how often people don't shut the fuck up. Yeah. Right. And it's amazing what that really does in terms of creating that third force inside, right? Because when you're holding that in, when you make a conscious choice to say, I'm going to hold this negativity in, I'm not going to let it out, what happens, right? Like, I mean, there's so many benefits to that. You're now not ruining someone else's day, right? I mean, you go through some of this and really talk about it and unwiring, I think, this addiction to gossip that we all have, and listen, I mean, I come from Jewish heritage. I mean, this does not come easily, we're negative
It's very
people.
cultural. It's very indigenous to all of our cultures, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So that catching yourself in that, I think, is so useful. And I love it because people get attached to the mystical, right? And all of that stuff is amazing. It's great. But like, we got to live in this 3D body. We got to live in this 3D world. And like this is annoying. My Amazon package is late. Now I'm feeling annoyed. Okay. All right. Well, can we unwire that? Can we get some perspective and giving people a sense of what they can do so quickly early in the morning that's going to just set them up for a day?
Yeah, it really makes such a difference, and that's why it's so powerful, because once you start the process, right, I compare it to there's a crack on the wall, and that crack is either going to grow really fast or grow slow, but there's a crack. And this isn't about you're never going to gossip again or you're never going to complain again. But you're going to see how you're going to do it so differently now. You're going to be like the observer watching yourself do it, and you're not going to do it for too long. I'm also really proud of, I created the Shut the Fuck Up 10 Commandments, and which is kind of like the guidelines hack. So like commandment number 1 is, if you're going to talk shit about someone, don't use their name, use my friend. So it's like, how can we start taking responsibility and using anonymity so we're not assassinating people's characters? I mean, Abby, if you and me have Maria as a friend in common, and I have a dynamic with Maria that, she's cheap, right? Every time we go out, I always end up paying. And you might not have that dynamic with her, right? But the minute that I tell you, wow, Abby, I mean, Maria is so cheap, like, guess what? I just infected you with that. Now you're going to look for it, and then she's going to deliver it to you. And then you're going to go back to me. You're going to be like, Jorge, you're so right. She's so cheap. Now, how about I use a little mindfulness about this, right? So by me not giving you that comment about Maria, 2 things are happening. I'm not assassinating her character, and now I'm also not destroying your experience. I'm not infecting your experience with it, because guess what? You might not have that dynamic with her. So it's that mindfulness of like, how could I really take care of not just assassinating her character, but be my sister's keeper and not ruin your experience.
I'm just chuckling to myself because I don't know if you know Maria. I know you're going to Orlando, and Maria talks shit about me nonstop. And you ask her, I will show you the text. She is constantly texting me pictures of her and my son Wyatt. The adoption papers are in process. You're such a terrible father. I had to do something about it. So I'm laughing. I don't know if you know her, but you should share this with her and tell her I said so. No, but it's absolutely right. You're really, you're having a vision of someone else, right? Like,
yeah. It's very innocently that it's very innocent. We don't take the moment to think issues of telling 30 people in one day. It's not gonna get it off your chest. It's just gonna keep perpetuating those stress cortisol levels that are going up in your body. So it's not about repression, it's mindfulness.
Yeah, I love that you offer that in the book because it sort of satisfies. I remember I had something years ago, so frustrating happen. Like someone talked to me in a way that was like, oh, no, you didn't. And I was about to meet with a bunch of colleagues and this is, kind of in the community. And I remember feeling with every ounce of my body, like I have to tell them, like it was an addiction. Like I just want them to know because I knew they would all be like, I can't believe that happened and blah, blah, blah. Right. So we got on our call and I said, listen, I'm going to tell you guys something, but I don't want anybody to react. I'm just going to say it. That's it. Because I'm trying to unwire this addiction. Right. And I think that's so powerful, but one question I have for you is, because we talk about mindfulness a lot, and always what I say is the problem with the mindfulness is that it involves the word mind, and we have a habit of talking to ourselves in our mind, and it's like one personality part is talking to another personality part, and as you and I know, you can't talk yourself into calm. You can't say, "Well, don't be annoyed, just don't." The book said, "Shut the fuck up," so shut the fuck up. Like you can strong arm yourself to some extent into that. But my question is, what about the energy? What about the energy of the place that you're in, right? When you're holding that in, because the goal, I think, from when I listen to what you're talking about, it could be interpreted as, if you're a better person, not your book, but like any conversation that someone's just listening to us off the cuff, you shouldn't do this because now you're going to hurt someone else or you're gonna whatever, right? And people tend to filter this kind of stuff through this idea of, I need to be a better person, so I need to not gossip, and that's why you shouldn't do it. And that's really not what's being said, right? Like we want to feel better. We want to not have cortisol running through our bodies, right? And yes, is it going to impact everybody else? Yeah. But what do you say to the people when they're just learning how to do this, right? So it doesn't come easily because the addiction's still there. The addiction to suffering is there. And they're not saying something, but they're walk around all day just pissed off and talking to themselves in their mind about how they're not going to say anything. They should say something. So-and-so should know, and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that's why I think it's the whole process is a combination of different things, right? All things that you can do simultaneously around your same day, which is, if you're adopting that 5-minute meditation, right? If you're just writing 3 things that you're grateful for in the morning, now that is part of the detoxification, right? So like, yes. That's when, the traffic's not going to annoy you. So we're used to get at a 9 pissed off. You're going to see that now you're at a 5 or a 4, things are not going to hit that. They're not going to be as deep as they used to be. Now, this one, I think it works so great. I've had issues where I'm like, all right, I'm having a problem. I'm like, I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not. But then I'm like, no, you know what? I do need to, I need to let it out and I need to have a safe space for someone to hear me out and bounce off ideas or whatever. And that's when it's so powerful, Abby, when you pick one person and you tell that person, hey, Abby, you're going to be my one person, okay? Because what that does, it creates a bond between us and you're listening to my situation. I mean, you probably don't even have to give me any advice and I sort myself out and you're listening. So to experience somebody's powerful listening and for you to know that I'm not going to tell anybody but you, it creates just something so beautiful and powerful. And I've gone through situations like that where I'm like, I'll call 3 or 4 people and I'm like, whoever calls me first will be the one. Then somebody does. And then I tell them. And then the other ones will call me. And then I'll be like, you know what? I'm good. I only tell one person and I already talked to her. So thank you so much. And you know,
is that hard to do? Is that hard? Did it start out as hard and get easier, or how was your journey with that?
Yeah. It does get easier. It's like a muscle, Abby. It's like, it's almost like when you are committing yourself to a fast or a diet,
Yeah.
and you got to summon that willpower. I'm not going to lie. But it's also like, listen, if I'm fasting or if I have my fitness goal and I have to pick you up and you're at a pizza party, right? I don't like go around the pizza party like telling people, why should I repress myself from pizza? That's not fair. No, I'm, the shut the fuck up method keeps you intimate with your commitment. What's your commitment? You want a more peaceful life. You want to track more things that you want. You want to keep your stress levels down. And therefore, you're going to shut up. Because just like you got to close your mouth and not have the pizza, you got to shut up and not complain.
Yeah. And you know what you said just now, right? Like the whole purpose behind it. You want to create the life that you want. And to your point, when you're listening to people listen at an event and they're all there, right? Meditating to create the life they want, and they're visioning and they're seeing things and they're having all these amazing experiences. And then it's time for lunch and they're going and doing that stuff, right? So talk to us a little bit about how that works, like attracting like, how that behavior, that very eyes open, boots on the ground, day-to-day behavior is preventing people from creating the things in their life that they want. Because I think that's a blind spot.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I actually think that the reason why those blind spots come up is so that it's like, oh, so you think you're all yogi-like and meditated? Here comes the traffic ticket, or here comes that. And I got to tell you, Abby, I'm at a point in my life that I'm getting more pleasure, not from getting the things that I want, but from seeing who I am when I don't get what I want. And that's when, like, somebody cuts you off or you don't murder them or whatever it is. And then, or maybe your refractory period, your period of upset, which used to be an hour, now it's 2 minutes, right? And then, then right before you go to bed that night, you're like, wow, I can't believe it. I can't believe how I brushed that one off. And then you can feel that pride for yourself. And then you can understand why it happened, why it was a gift that you were running late, or, the cute little old lady got in front of you right when you were about to buy a gum and now she's buying everything with a coupon. Like in the experience of not getting what you want, you can start like, wow, got it. This is my practice. This is it. The flight left me. I didn't make it on my standby list. Whatever it is just getting what you want. It's easy, right? It's like, okay, I want this, I want that, but give me that opportunity where I'm not getting what I want, and I'm not a victim of depending on it, having to go the way that I want it for me to feel at peace. I have emotional autonomy and freedom.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, because I always talk about this, and every new volunteer that I've ever mentored or anything like that, when I used to volunteer at events, I don't know how I knew to do this, but from the very beginning, I always did this. Volunteering for people, listening, and Jorge and I both know it's really a challenge activity. It's very hard work. You're working very hard. You're sometimes working nearly all night. There's so many rewards to it, but it's a lot. And every time I went to volunteer, I would set an intention for myself about what I wanted to overcome in myself. And a lot of times when people are doing things like that, there's an unconscious unworthiness program, and they're trying to be seen, or they're trying to be, the most helpful, or be recognized, or all of these things. And it's happening unconsciously. And of course, those are natural drives that we all have. Doesn't mean we don't want to be of service. We want to be of service, but when we're under stress, that very beautiful thing turns into something else, right? And every time I went through an event and was like, came up against myself and was like, I never stood out. I was never noticed. I was never congratulated. I was never said, oh my God, great job. Whatever. Like I leaped in front of an attendant and, caught them right before they, get up to the stage or whatever. And I had no reaction. I was just like, oh, girl, you fucking nailed that. Like that is so good. Like you literally had an amazing week, and it didn't matter whether anybody knew. I mean, the other side, right? About not mattering if somebody knows that you're pissed off. What about when it doesn't matter if somebody knows how great you are? right? Like
Mm.
that's freedom. I mean, to me, right? Like when
No, that
I
is
can
freedom.
get on top of my ego that way and be like, it's all good. Like I know what I did. I feel good about what I did or didn't do.
Yeah, yeah. Getting what you want is a crutch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting what you want is a crutch because it's nice, but it's still, the not getting what you want is the gym, is it's really the exercise that'll build the muscles, is the physical therapy, right? But not getting what you want is the physical therapy. So it's like, and we have our pillars of our crutches, our health, right? Even health is a crutch. It's like, try to find peace of mind when the body is not doing the way that the world would say it should. You know what I mean? And that's where I think, man, life is so rich because like life is really a preparation for death in so many ways, right? It's like we grow up and we have to let go of our youth, let go of our dreams, some of our dreams, right? Let go of our parents, and eventually you let go of this meat suit and you turn it in and you go, hey, I'm sorry about the dent on the left. And, like,
Right.
and that's it. So
Right.
this whole life was a big preparation of letting go of those crutches. And if we're still stuck in how we looked when we were 20 and how we used to run when we were 20 and whatever it is, you can see it in people. It's a painful ride. It's like you're going down suffering, instead of just letting go and surrender. So I think we're always going to be in the practice of letting go. I think that's the big thing that universally we all signed up for. So the question to me becomes, if we are all built for some reason to learn how to let go, do you want to learn to let go when someone cuts you off in traffic and you're feeling love and empathy? Or do you want to learn to let go when the doctor says, hey, we saw something in the test and we need you to come back next week? Because you will learn to let go. Just how do you want to learn it?
Yeah. Do you want to, right. That's so great, right? So good. How do you want to learn it? You're going to keep getting situations placed in you. And the more you resist, the bigger the situation that's coming in.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm curious about, because of the world that you live in, you've had tremendous success, and you've been in show business, and a lot of famous people and all of that kind of stuff. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about this hierarchy that we live in our world, right? We're constantly comparing ourselves to the other person, constantly, reaching for that status or that goal or that something. And one of the things that, I often think about is, what would dinner party conversation be like if instead of talking about, what we're achieving or what we're doing, what we were achieving was like, oh, you know what? I really worked this quarter on memorizing guilt, and it was amazing. I did not make lunch for my son, and he was hungry, and I didn't feel guilty. It was incredible. Like that. I mean, because I so get what you're saying. Like that is how I feel freedom. Like when I watch myself not do something, not react in some way, whatever that is, I feel so free. And yet we're so addicted in our society to be like, I'll be free when I get what that guy has, when I whatever. And I'm just curious about the circles that you run in, because, a lot of them are, listen, the circles, all of us, we're all driven by that, right? That's the culture we live in. But because you have, had such a high profile life and whatever, and I'm curious.
Yeah, no, I love where you're going with this. So I talk about this in the book, actually. I've lived in LA for 20 years, and I've had the incredible opportunity of, working with people like Jennifer Lopez or Ricky Martin or Brad Pitt, and Lindsay Lohan was a really good friend of mine for years, and we're still in contact. But what I've noticed is that what I've loved about my LA journey overall is that it's the material world in really enhanced, And what I mean by that is that I think that there's two things that are going to happen here, and it's really augmented. You're either going to succumb to the ego's seduction of like, why am I not in that? Why am I not invited to that party? Why am I not in that Netflix billboard? And why are you? You were in my audition and you got the role. And in here, it's a very specific condition, just because there's a common denominator of the people that are not from here, but the people that came here for stardom, right? It's like everyone left their small towns looking for bigger dreams. So the common denominator is highly ambitious, talented people, right? But with all that ambition and talent comes a lot of frustration because most of the time you're not achieving those things. And I think a place like LA, in that kind of augmentation, it's either two things are going to happen. So either you're going to be miserable because you're never going to get there, or you're going to learn that it's not that serious and who cares and have fun with it, you know? And that happened to me. And I tell a story where like, when I moved here, I landed in a celebrity circle, and I was with this celebrity and a photographer, celebrity photographer, and we went to this party. And I mean, I've never been treated better. Like they threw the red carpet at us, and I was like, "Oh my God, I can see how this is so addicting." And the next day, I went back because it was a party for a week long, and I didn't have these celebrities with me, and I felt like the owner of the party. It was like I was like roadkill. Like it was like he wasn't even, you know. And in that moment, I had like a download where I was like, oh my God, this city's so fake. It's all about, you know, the Hollywood thing was true. And but then I had an even bigger download that came that I was like, oh my God, it's not personal. So when they love you, it's not about you. It's what they think they're getting from you. And when they don't love you, it's not about you either. It's what they think they're not getting from you. So if we don't take this thing seriously, we could just have fun. And that's what life is. It's just like, we're all just passing by. Like
it's such a short amount of time that we're
like,
here.
Don't take it. It's not that deep, bro. It's not that deep. And I think that obviously, listen, we're talking about it a little earlier. Like the passing of my parents was so painful, but it was such a gift because it made me really organically understand that this is not real. Like, I can't see my parents. I can't touch them. I can't smell them. I can't even prove that they exist. There's pictures and there's videos, but it's not real. So the whole thing is not real. And with that knowledge, God, I am going to knock on every door and have fun and really live my life to the fullest. So I think what I've been very blessed to observe, and whether they're celebrities or not, in this state of the 3D world materialistic situation, is just observation and really kind of enjoy the pleasures of that earthly like celebrity, but at the same time keep my foot on the 5D world of this isn't real. It's got to be one foot in the 3D, one foot in the 5D. That's the key.
Yeah, 100%. So let me ask you, because we're on the intuition incubator, how does this impact intuition?
My God.
What do you think intuition is, and how does your shut the fuck up?
I love it. One of my best friends just wrote, he's amazing, this author, Happy Ali, he wrote the Intuition Bible, and he's got such an amazing intuition factor.
Well,
I think that in my personal experience with intuition, like I feel that I perceive everything as good. And I let the world guide me into this feels right, this doesn't feel right. But sometimes I do things even if they don't feel right, and I trust that they're gonna lead me to the right thing. I think when everything is relative, right? Like you lose that appointment, a hurricane comes, anything, you have to just trust, right? I think for me, intuition is just trust this moment. And every yes, every no is a yes to something else. And if it's a yes, it's great. And if it's a no, it's also a yes to something else. So that to me is just, how could I trust this moment and let it divinely guide me? That for me is my intuition.
And I feel like your book is so useful in that, because when you decide to shut the fuck up, you are automatically really reducing a tremendous amount of noise.
Yes.
Inner and outer noise, right? And it's the noise that keeps us from our intuition. And if you just decide to stop engaging in that, you're plugged in to yourself, in that moment. So I love that.
Yeah, no, I think that is a way when you silence that noise and you get to be with, that detox. I think that noise is just part of the addiction, the emotional addiction of like, I need to talk this out. I need to talk this out. And we've all been there, right? I've been through situations where like you want to keep telling the story to everybody and you don't feel better after you tell the story. You actually feel depleted, but it's almost like you're a heroin addict and you're going through withdrawal. So you need to tell the story again. And you feel that high of those stress hormones. And then that person leaves and then your body goes, all right, you got to find the next one. So the detoxification is the shutting up, because you will feel like, oh my God, like, like what you were saying before, like, can I get an agreement that this guy's an asshole? And the whole room would say like, oh my God, you're so right. But then what are you going to get? You're just going to then you're doing heroin again with the whole crew. You feel good for a couple hours and then your body goes, all right, let's find the next asshole to like treat you bad, because we like this whole, like, someone treats you bad, you complain, you get agreement. Again, someone treats you bad. So it's amazing the kind of money and equity we leave on the table by not really acknowledging and seeing how we're caught up in an addiction cycle.
Yeah. And I love what you're doing, because, you're giving these basic steps and you're reminding people like it's a process, right? You don't just choose to shut the fuck up and everything's fine. No, I'm just going to do this, like you're really real about it, and you explain all of it. And the fact of the matter is, like, we would never expect to walk into a gym and never have been worked out before and go and be able just to lift all the weights in there. Like, we have an expectation that it's going to take some time to build the muscle that we want to have. And the same is going to be true of building that ability, that inner strength to be able to do these things. So I absolutely love what you're putting on the table here. All right. So I wanted to ask you one question, because I heard you on your friend Stu's podcast, Let It Stew, and he's just the most adorable guy. I think I shared with you, I want to be his yenta.
He's great.
And you guys had a great rapport. And one of the things that you shared on that podcast was that you have a game. There's a shut the fuck up method game. So can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the game is, I'm definitely going to use it as a segment when I start the Shut the Fuck Up Method podcast. Probably it'll be STFU, then that's it. But the game is called To Shut the Fuck Up or To Don't Shut the Fuck Up. So it's a version of Would You Rather, right? And I bring up real life examples like, your friend that's been single forever is dating a new guy, and a week after you meet the guy, you see him at a party, clearly drunk, hitting on somebody else. Do you shut the fuck up or you don't shut the fuck up? So you really get to kind of see the person's not just their moral code, but almost like that genetic instinctual wiring of like, oh, I'll go and tell my friend, without really taking a beat and be like, well, maybe my friend and this guy have an agreement. Maybe they're not monogamous yet. Maybe it's not that serious. Maybe I need to think more, hey, my friend finally has a partner. Like, why do I have to go in and ruin the moment? Or maybe not. Or maybe you do want to say something. But I think the key is you get to see what your internal wiring looks like. And then also I would encourage people to maybe ask questions in a way where, like, maybe you want to kind of do a little deep dive and casually ask your friend, so, hey, is it really serious? Maybe you find out that they're not that serious, that they're not monogamous. And all of a sudden you're like, great, I don't have to do anything. So I think it's a good exercise to not just have fun, because it is fun, but also to see what our knee-jerk reactions are, what our motives are, and how can we transcend them.
Yeah. And I love what you said about you get to recognize your internal wiring.
Yeah.
Like, that's so phenomenal, and in a fun way, right? Like, where you get to actually sort of be an observer and then hear what other people would do. And it opens up this whole door for curiosity instead of like certainty, instead of like, this is the right way to do something, this is the wrong way to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because I think, without, I think male and female tendencies are, they're also cultural, and they could also be genetic, and I think girls probably have more of a girl's code of like, oh, I gotta go and tell her, where a guy could be like, it's none of my business. And not one way is right or not one way is wrong, but how about kind of transcending our knee-jerk reaction. Maybe that's the exercise, just kind of seeing like, wow, I normally would do this, but maybe I don't want to do that right now, or maybe I do want to do that. But just, but it's a fun way to just think, take a deep dive on how our mind works.
Yeah. And you just evolved that idea even more. It's a way to not have a knee-jerk reaction, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what the choice is. It's a way to simply just put that stop in place so that you can make a decision one way or the other. So it sounds like a very fun game. I know you said you were on Heather McDonald's podcast playing that game.
That's where the game kind of debuted. And Heather, obviously, she's an incredible comedian. So we had so much fun. And she actually would say something, then I would like give her something to think about it. She'd be like, no, I'll take it back. I won't say anything. Or I'll say something because we had different case scenarios. And it was really, really fun.
Yeah.
This work doesn't have to be heavy. This work is like life. The more that, ironically, the more that we don't take life seriously, the more that it goes our way.
That is so true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so hard to remember, right?
But we got to stop saying it's hard to remember.
That's true. That's true too, right? Yeah, it's not hard to remember. We just have to do the work to like wire it in, right?
It's like the gym. You gotta go. You gotta work in your reps. We gotta go to the gym of the mind and work on these habits and the great undoing of these knee-jerk reactions.
Yeah. And, I think we got cut off a couple of times, but this idea that we had spoken about that I think didn't get recorded was a couple of them really, that we have an expectation that when we're going to go to the gym, it's going to take some time to build muscle. It's going to take some time to see our body be different. The same is true of this stuff. The same is true of mental fitness. So just because it's hard doesn't mean we don't keep working on it.
Absolutely.
And I think you also really shared how short our time on this earth was,
Yeah.
And, to your point, right? Like, let's just not take it so seriously and see what happens.
A little better. The whole point of the book is just how can we enjoy this ride just a little better?
Yeah. Yeah. And why shouldn't we, right? Like we all deserve that. It's not easy being human. It's hard. Yeah. We're faced with a lot of things, but it doesn't have to be, right? If you sort of work on that operating system.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's awesome. Thank you so much. So where can people find you? Can people find the game yet, or
well, you can look at the game is coming. The book for right now is what you're getting. Okay. And the book, you can find it. It's on Amazon, The Shut the Fuck Up Method. There's another one, but mine is by me. And you can find me at our website, stfumethod.com. You could also find some merch. We got mugs, we got t-shirts, we got some. So you remember to shut the fuck up. And then there's you can have one-on-ones with me. I'm going to be putting in some upcoming retreats, and my Instagram is Jorge Perez JR. I'm pretty active there. And my company's website is Jorge Perez Reps.
Amazing. And I will have all of that in the show notes. I really want to thank you, Jorge, for being here. This was tons of fun. And I can't wait to see where the journey goes. And I can't wait for my audience to buy your book.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you. Thank you for having me.